If I were forced to keep only one tool in my DIY kit, this might be it. This is a multi-tool. If you've never seen one before, what it is simply is an oscillating tool with easily swappable heads. I love the quick release action. Basically, there's just a little lever here, and that allows me to slide, easily pop that off. And each of the attachments have all these little holes that make it fit perfectly into these little grooves. And so it holds it in place really, really well. I can also even change the angle that it's attached at if for some reason I need to do that. And so all the tool does is it kind of oscillates a little bit. So really I can set it at any angle based upon however I need to hold it. So if I were cutting something really close to the floor, but I was cutting it at a 90-degree angle, I could turn this up sideways like that and run it just like this. Well, it's not quite 90 degrees, is it? There we go. And I could run it just like this down against the ground while holding it with a handle up above, if that makes sense. What the tool does is it covers a lot of things all in one tool, hence the name multi-tool, which was a confusing name for me when I first started hearing it years ago, because for me a multi-tool was like a Leatherman pocket knife. But this, in the world of power tools, is the multi-tool. But it covers things like cutting, sanding, scraping, and grinding, and a lot of other things all in one tool. There are a lot of different head options that you can use. I have right here in front of me a cutting head. This is for wood or metal, and it's got kind of fine teeth, so it's more of a finish cut for wood. I've also got a sanding attachment. They also make different shaped cutting attachments and all sorts of different things for the multi-tool. There are a lot of different brands that make them. This one's made by Porter Cable. That's a brand that they used to sell at Lowe's a lot. Now it's been replaced primarily with the Craftsman brand, which is comparably priced, and they make one too. DeWalt makes them, Dremel makes them, so many different brands. In fact, pretty much everybody that makes like these hand power tools, they probably have a multi-tool in their setup. The reason why it's, again, if I had to settle on just one tool, why it's the tool, is because it does so many different things. It prevents you from having to buy a ton of different specialized tools, again, like an oscillating sander. When I've got the sanding pads for this, and all I've got to do is just take the pad and it just sticks on here to the attachment, and now I've got a sander built into this tool. It's also really compact and easy to use. You can get into tight spots, especially because I can change the angle to whatever I need it to be so that the handle's not in the way for the work that I'm doing. It's super handy a lot of times if I need to make a quick cut, especially on something that's already in place, like on the wall, or if I need to do a little bit of finish work. Not so much if I'm doing large scale work. Obviously, there's a lot of things it can't do. It doesn't make a very good hammer. There are other tools that we still need, but again, if I had to settle on one power tool, this can do pretty much everything. Let's talk about some of the things that it can do. Obviously, it can cut wood. I'm not gonna do large cuts with this, but it's the ideal tool if I need to cut some trim or I need to trim a door jamb because I'm adding new flooring. I've tiled a laundry room before, right? Where now the floor was gonna be up a little higher than the old linoleum flooring that was there before. And so in order to tile under the door jamb, I needed to cut it like not even quite a half an inch higher than where it was. So rather than taking off the door jamb or trying to use like a Sawzall or a reciprocating saw that probably would have made more of a mess, this becomes the perfect tool for that job. You can easily flush cut nails or screws that are sticking out of a board, and you can cut them really, really flush with the surface. Again, a lot better than you can with other saws. You can use it to remove old caulk or adhesive because you're gonna be recalking and you wanna get the old stuff out of the way. If you clear out the crack, then you can caulk a lot better because your caulk will go in to the crack a lot better. That makes sense. Before I had a multi-tool, I'd have to use like a utility knife or something to try to get in there and scrape away, or maybe a flathead screwdriver. This does the job faster and better, and in a lot of ways safer. Sanding into small corners or detailed spots. I mean, again, you can buy an oscillating sander with this shaped head on it, or you can just use the multi-tool that you already have because you bought it for the many other uses that it has. And use the little head that came with it, and you can get into tight corners and do the detail work. You can also use a little scraper head to scrape paint or glue or things off of really hard surfaces. Because it's moving, it's oscillating a little bit, it's gonna do a great job of scraping. So why do I recommend having one of these tools? The pros of this is, again, that it's super versatile. One tool that can do a lot of things. The second reason is that the attachments for it are widely available and interchangeable. So when I buy an attachment that's got just a universal attachment style, which is standard, DeWalt uses that style and now everybody else does too. And so any attachment I can find is going to work with mine, basically no matter what brand I get. And then the third reason that people really love this tool, DIYers especially, is because it's fairly small, so it's really portable, but it's also so versatile, which is gonna save you a ton of money over buying several other tools that you might not use very often. But there are some drawbacks to this tool. Honestly, I went a lot of years of my life without having a multi-tool and made do with all the other tools that I had, because even though it's a tool that can do a lot of jobs, it's not always the best tool for those jobs. For example, I mentioned before, we're not gonna do long cuts. It just really isn't the fastest tool if I need to do really big jobs. There are a few things, like I mentioned, like trimming the bottom of a door jamb, or I added a new door not that long ago to an entryway, kind of in a hallway. And so there was trim on the wall, and all I had to do was cut out one little section of trim on each side for the door jamb to go. Well, this tool made that a really quick, easy job. It really is the perfect tool for that job. But most of the other things that it can do, it maybe doesn't do quite as well, or at least not better than the tools that are dedicated for that purpose. The next thing is you can wear through blades pretty quickly, especially if I'm cutting up metal or I'm cutting through things that are kind of hard. You can work through blades rather quickly. Like with the sander, I gotta buy the sanding pads instead of just sandpaper. And because of that, it could be a little bit more expensive if I'm using it on larger scale projects. But again, if I'm doing large scale projects, then it probably makes sense to go buy a bigger sander. The other con to this is that the way that that's designed and it oscillates and stuff, it vibrates pretty good. And so it takes a little bit of practice to get good at cutting nice straight cuts. You can easily really like chip up a piece of trim if you're not careful with it. It's easy to do it well, but it's also easy to screw it up. And so before you go doing anything like finish wise with it, I'd maybe practice on a board and just make sure that you can hold it good and steady. So here's the big takeaway. A multi-tool like this, it's often not the best tool for any one job, but it's often the right tool for a whole bunch of different jobs. So if you're a homeowner that's gonna be doing any DIY work, or if you're just a DIYer in general, this is pretty much a must-have tool. It's gonna save you a ton of time and a ton of money. So a couple of final tips for you if you decide you're gonna go get a multi-tool is pick a decent brand, one of the brands that's carried at kind of the major retailers, because the really cheap ones, they often do burn out really fast. And this is a tool that you're probably going to use fairly frequently. Whereas with a lot of other power tools that we use as DIYers, we may not use that tool that often. This is one that you're gonna be able to use for so many different jobs that you're gonna wear it out if it's not a decent one. And then for whatever attachments that you use fairly frequently, especially like these little saw blades, stock up on them. You're gonna use more of them than you think. And so when you go to the store, just buy a pack of them and keep several on hand, just because they're gonna wear out. And if you're using a dull blade, then it's gonna start to get frustrating. So now my question for you, for those of you that have used these before, what's your favorite use for the multi-tool? How has it saved you time or money? Share in the comments below. I also wanna encourage you to subscribe here to Fixter for more DIY tool breakdowns and tips. We'll see you all next time.